We see Moses as a model for leadership, someone from whom we can learn, someone who displays qualities which are not only admired, but respected by people almost regardless of their faith convictions all over the world. But as Jonathan Sacks, the British member of House of Lords and Chief Rabbi of the United Kingdom, has pointed out, there are 6 women whose model and input into his life would mean that we would have no Moses at all, and that without them, this line from which we ultimately see traced through to the person of Jesus Christ would not even exist. Now, the first of those very obviously is Jochebed, Moses' mother. Now, we get her name in Exodus chapter 6, verse 20. But we see that she does something remarkable. Pharaoh, the ruler of one of the most powerful empires on the planet, has decreed that all baby boys are to be killed at birth, but girls may live. And she makes a stunning decision that she is willing to have a baby. How many of us would be willing to give birth to a child knowing that there was only a 50% chance of survival? But that is exactly the decision that she makes. She displays incredible bravery and is willing to trust God with a very uncertain future and in the face of great evil. We see in her a kind of strength that is essential for all forms of good and effective leadership. She is willing to let go and trust God. I remember when my wife and I had our children dedicated shortly after they were born. In the dedication ceremony, there was a question which we were asked. The question was, as you dedicate this child, are you willing to support them in whatever God calls them to, even if it means a life of great sacrifice and service, neither complaining nor holding them back, but seeking only God's will for their life? It is very hard to let go of that which is most precious to you and trust God with it, but that is precisely what she is willing to do. And in it, we see a remarkable model and a factor that shapes Moses and helps him into not only existence, but provides a pattern for him to copy later on in life. Now, the second person we see that is central to this story told in Exodus chapters 1 and 2 is that of his elder sister, Miriam. She watches her brother float down the Nile. She then follows at a distance and she sees who intercepts that crib that is made. It is none other than the daughter of the king. And she is bold enough to approach this princess and suggest the means of Moses' own upbringing. That if the princess is willing to look after him, why doesn't she go and find a woman who will help raise this child? And then the daughter goes back to the mother and recruits the mother to become now the nurse to Moses, and she actually has the privilege of raising her own child. What incredible boldness we see displayed in her. What incredible strength. Miriam is willing to take huge risks and to step out, following that which God has asked. She is someone of great boldness, willing to step forward and speak truth to power. A quality that Moses is going to need, as he himself will then have to find that strength within himself. Now, the second 2 women who had a huge influence and without whom there would be Moses are, of course, the 2 midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. Now, they have the most remarkable story. Pharaoh has decreed that the midwives are to make sure that no baby boy survives, but baby girls are allowed to survive. And when they are called before Pharaoh and they are asked, why is it that the boys continue to live? They give the most incredible explanation you can imagine. And they say, well, look, our women aren't like your women. They're very vigorous. They give birth very quickly. Before we can arrive, they escape. And in so doing, they actually embody one of the great lessons of civilization. As Jonathan Sacks points out, one of the great contributions to our idea of civilization and law, legal systems within the civilized world, is that there are moral limits to the exercise of power. And that thought is very often originally attributed to a 19th century scholar by the name of Henry David Thoreau. But these women actually display and teach this lesson thousands of years before he ever wrote any of his works. They decide to follow their conscience rather than conform to the law where they are. They put the law of justice over any human law. And as a result, again, show and demonstrate a quality. You can imagine Moses on hearing these stories as an older child, as he hears of the circumstances of his birth, the interventions that took place, and those who then came along, what an incredible impact that would have made. Now, the fifth woman in Moses' life was then Zipporah, his wife. And in one of the most mysterious passages in the book of Bible, in Exodus chapter 4, we read of how without her intervention, Moses would have died. She was able to have insight into a situation which he faced, confront a danger with which he had to live, and were it not for his actions, he would not have survived. He had a strength beside him that was able to help him do and achieve that which he needed for. She literally helped save his life. And lastly, of course, there's Pharaoh's daughter. Now, it's remarkable that we cannot be sure of what her name is. But she again shows remarkable strength. She raises Moses in the very palace where her father had decreed that he should be killed. She knows of his descent and she knows of his heritage, but she is willing to go against that which the most powerful person on the planet had decreed in order to do that which is right. She gave Moses his name, but we do not know what hers is, which raises a difficult question for all of us. What is more important, to make a name or to make a difference? Without Moses, there is no lineage to the person of Jesus Christ. These interventions are not just simply random events in history without any eternal significance. They have huge significance. History hinges on what is going to happen at this point. And here, this anonymous woman who makes this incredible stand is literally, in the hands of God, an agent through whom history is directed and finds a fresh and new direction. She holds no position of power. We often think that we have to hold a position in order to exercise leadership. But leadership is also exercised through influence. And this is what she does. And she does it remarkably. And she does it remarkably well. We see embodied in these women this incredible display, lessons which Moses himself would live with and continue with. Is it any surprise that we're told that he was the most humble man on the planet? When he understood all that had taken place that was required for him to be, he then goes on to lead. But we see in these women these leadership qualities which model the pattern which he himself is to follow. In my own life, I can also see the impact of various generations of women and how they've shaped me. I think of my mother, who sadly passed away at the end of the last few months. And I see in her a remarkable quality to be able to sacrifice for that which she believed was good. When I was born, I remember her telling me that at the very time I was born, she was offered her dream job with one of the top designers in the world to design dresses. But she walked away because she felt it was more important and that she wanted to raise a family rather than go down that particular line. She was willing to give up everything in order for her own children to be raised in an environment. What an incredible model to see. In my wife, I also see someone without whom, very seriously, I can't imagine doing anything that which I do. Without her steadfastness and input and her walking alongside with me, I see modeled in her a willingness not only to be strong, but also a comfort and a care that constantly challenges me and makes me think about the way in which I engage with people, and I have to process that and learn from her. She becomes my teacher in that role. And in my two daughters, I see such a beauty and creativity. One is a very skilled cook and baker and just loves to create and bring things into existence that bring pleasure to other people. And she receives such joy from the joy of others. Not because of something that she's done for herself, but because through the act of service, she has actually brought real joy that she then enters into as well. And in my older daughter, I see someone who has remarkable theological insight. It's amazing to have children who can teach you, and yet she is someone who listens so carefully to the Spirit of God and then is able so insightfully to share what she sees in the Bible that she has now become a teacher herself, and it is a great joy when a child becomes a teacher of a parent.